All right, guys, welcome to the Buff Show. Today we have Stetson Anderson with Imperial Tax Advisors here with us. Yes, this is my brother.
The handsomer one.
Yeah,
The handsomest brother.
I beg to differ there, but give us a rundown, Stetson. What is Imperial Tax Advisors?
Yeah. So what we do is I work with business owners and entrepreneurs, and we help them save money through proactive tax planning. So typically I'll meet with my clients 2 to 4 times per year, and we develop strategies that will help reduce their taxable income so you can keep more of your hard-earned money at the end of the year.
Why would you want to do that?
Why would I want to do that? I know, being a numbers guy, it can be tough for a lot of people, but I enjoy it. I just love it. I like seeing what it can do in people's lives, and with the money that they'd spend on taxes, putting it towards other investments, whether it's oil and gas, real estate is a big one, which is why we're here today, or taking a nice family vacation.
Well, it's crazy to me because I think people, like when I ask people, what's your biggest expense? They're going to say my mortgage.
Yeah, and that's pretty common. A lot of people think the mortgage is their biggest expense, but it's not true. Taxes are your biggest personal expense that you have. If you think about it, you got sales tax, property tax, self-employment tax, federal tax, short and long-term capital gain, state tax. There's so many taxes that we pay over the course of the year, and so it's just a good idea just having an idea on how we can mitigate that. Because a lot of people, they're working the first 3-4 months of the year for completely free.
Run us through those numbers, actually. Tell us, give us a breakdown. If somebody makes X amount, what does that look like?
Absolutely. So I've got an example here. If someone's making $200,000 per year as a
W-2.
in the W-2, okay, they're going to pay a total of $55,000 in taxes. And that's the equivalent of working the first 3.5 months of the year for completely free, which is pretty crazy. So W-2 people, there's not a whole lot that you can do to really offset your income. But once you become self-employed, you have 1099s, or you start maybe a small business. I mean, side hustles and things like that. If we can get to where we have something outside of our W-2 job, we can start writing off typical expenses that you're going to use every day, like your cell phone, your computer, your car. We can get you a home office at your home that you're going to write off. Start writing off maybe some trips or travel and dining. So it just opens up so many doors on things that we can start to write off.
So, and all it takes is them basically saying, hey, I'm going to buy a rental property, or I'm going to start doing lawn care, or whatever small business they want to do. They basically set up a business and start running with it. What do you need to create, like a legal business?
Yeah, so to create a legal business, technically all that you need to be in business is you just need a bank account and a way to process money. That is it. You're just going to file as a sole proprietor. Now, if you start making more money and whatnot, and maybe you're in a riskier business, let's get you into an LLC. And if we're making, let's say we're netting more than $30,000 after all of our expenses, we're going to be wanting to look at an S corporation. That's going to help mitigate the self-employment tax. So it's kind of getting into the weeds there, but just to get started in your business, I mean, an LLC is always a great place to start, especially if you're going to be getting a rental property.
Yeah, especially a rental property, because it kind of, what does a LLC do for you with that rental property?
So basically, it just gives you protection from anything that happens inside of that property. So let's say a tenant, if you're renting a home and a tenant trips and falls and they want to sue you, as long as you're maintaining that LLC how it needs to be maintained, you're not mixing personal and business expenses, you're holding a board meeting, tracking all your expenses, and it's functioning like a legitimate business. As long as you're doing those things, it keeps anything that happens inside of that LLC, so they can't get at any other personal assets, whether maybe it's some stocks, crypto, or your personal home. So it just gives you asset protection.
It basically cages it in. If there's an issue with that asset, it just stays within that asset.
Exactly.
Doesn't come out and breach the whole castle.
Yep, exactly. The castle can't be breached.
So let's go over kind of like the 5 main year-end taxes, what those are, and then how you work specifically with individuals and real estate investors to mitigate their tax burden at the end of the year.
Yeah. So the 5 main year-end taxes, you're going to have federal income. You got Utah state tax, or wherever you're at, you've got state tax typically, self-employment tax, and then long and short-term capital gains. if you're selling stocks, crypto, real estate, or anything like that. And really, it just depends on the client and what they're wanting to do and what they're interested in. So there's a variety of ways that we can look at mitigating this. Obviously, if you own a small business, that is one of the best ways because, like I said, we get to turn personal things that we use every day into business write-offs. But if you're interested in real estate, I mean, real estate's always been, it's one of the number one wealth builders. Obviously, you see among the wealthy. But it also comes with a plethora of things that we can start to write off, like mortgage interest, property taxes, utilities, vacations, and things like that. So there's so many things that we can do. I mean, we can look at the Augusta rule. That one's kind of a unique one. Opportunity zones, oil and gas. So a lot of different ways that we can run it. Just depends on the client and what their interests are, and just having an advisor and a tax person that's aligned with that and knows your industry.
Because what does the average person pay? Like if they make $1, what do they pay in taxes?
So average person, if they are self-employed filing as an LLC, the federal income tax, it's the more money you make, the more that you pay. But the lowest, so let's say you're making $20,000, you don't make more than that, you'll pay 10%. Utah state tax about 5%, and then self-employment tax is 15.3%. So on every dollar that you make filing as an LLC, you will pay 30 cents. You make $100, you're paying $30
and that's the lowest
in tax. And that's the lowest tax bracket.
What's like the mid tier?
So mid tier is probably 22 to 24%. And that's just federal. So 24%. Now you have
that
state.
Bumps you up to like 42%.
Yeah,
tax?
5%. I should be good at math. Yeah, 45%, pretty close. Yeah, if you're filing as an LLC. So it can get extremely high to where half your money's going to taxes if you don't have somebody in your corner that knows how to get you structured properly.
It's like the simplest way to make money.
Yeah, basically.
You've already made it.
Yeah.
You've already made it. You're just basically being like, becoming more educated on how to keep it. And tell us about whether you like Trump or you hate him. Tell us about,
now we're getting political.
Tell us his stats.
Had to bring that in. Personally, I love what he's doing. Back in 2017, he enacted what's called the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, and he's actually looking to get that reenacted this year with a few additional things. But if he doesn't get it reenacted, all of our percentages are going to go up by at least 2 to 3%. So that federal income tax, the 10% is going to be 12, 12 is 15.
Jeez.
So everything is going to start, your tax brackets are actually going to go up. He's not wanting to tax tips, not wanting to tax Social Security, and he's actually wanting to start looking at taxing billionaires more. People that invest in these huge, what are they called? Stadiums, because they're getting massive tax breaks. They did a breakdown, and there was a lady that worked there, made $30,000 a year, and her tax bracket was about 15%. And the billionaire that actually bought the stadium, his effective tax bracket was like 10.
Really?
So it was less.
That's crazy.
And he's making so much more money. And so he's looking at kind of leveling the playing field in that sense. Bringing back bonus depreciation is another big one for people that are investing and for business owners. So there's a lot that he's doing and a lot of great things that he's working to bring back. So I'm a fan of what he's doing. He's doing a lot of good things.
Well, I found it interesting that you said that in 2016 and 17, he paid $750 in income taxes.
Yeah, which is
crazy.
Absolutely crazy. And that's coming from someone, and that's a benefit of investing in real estate. You see, Trump, he is a real estate professional before he became the president. And someone with that status and investing in real estate, there's just so many tax deductions that you can take that can completely eliminate your income. And that's why it's so important to start investing today, because there's so many things you can do. Whether you're a real estate professional or just an active investor, there's still ways that you can offset your active income depending on what you make. That's going to help lower your bracket. And like Trump, like that's a perfect example of someone who understands the tax code and has great advisors in his corner that is helping him do those things.
And you basically just did this on one of your properties. You want to dive into those numbers?
Yeah, absolutely.
On what real estate does for you?
Yeah, real estate, super powerful. So I've got a property here in Ogden. I was actually talking to my brother about selling it. And he's like, no, keep it. And I was like, I'm getting sick of dealing with the renters and everything like that, the headaches that can come. But then I did a breakdown. I went to a class and they broke down exactly how much a property makes. And basically there's 4 categories that you have. So you've got appreciation, mortgage pay down, tax benefits, and cash flow. So on this specific home, I put $50,000 down on the property, and then it needed about $60,000 in improvements. Now that home's worth about $450,000, and on average, real estate appreciates about 3% per year as long as you're buying in a good area, and that's where Paden comes in because you need someone who understands where you're buying and knows the good areas and knows that that property is going to go up in value. So with that, 3% on 450 is $13,500. So on my 110,000 that I put down, it appreciates 13,500. That's a 12% return on my investment.
Which is cool because I love how with real estate you can use a lot of debt, and your debt when you bought that house was good, like pretty good debt because it was cheap. What's your interest rate on that?
It's about I think 4.5%.
Yeah, so that's awesome. Great interest rate there, and the whole $450,000 is appreciating, not just what you put in, which was 110,000,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
So you get appreciation on the whole, like on the leveraged money as well, which is awesome.
Yeah, super, super powerful. And that's what makes real estate so powerful. And as well, I mean, you have mortgage pay down. So the tenants, let's say you're renting it, this is a duplex. They're paying for the mortgage. And obviously you have the interest rate that's built into it, but it's also paying down $600 per month on the mortgage. So on that 110, because I didn't do the full 450, it's only 110. I get $7,200 a year in mortgage pay down. That's a 6.5% return on my investment. Which is what Paden was talking about with leveraging debt, which is super powerful.
And that's what a lot of people look at is mostly, well, it's more the cash flow, which we're going to get into.
Yep.
So you have your mortgage pay down, which a lot of people don't think about that the mortgage is being bought down every month, and it accelerates. Like these 30-year mortgages they're inverted to where
Front loaded.
yeah, all the interest is like right up front. And then as you get into it, 10, 15, 20 years, like then it's almost all principal that's going towards it. So if you've had a mortgage for a while, 5, 10, 15 years, like it doesn't really make sense to refinance it at that point.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then with the cash flow, I mean, this property does about $350 per month, so $4,200 a year, and that gives me a 4% return on my money. And then
on the 110,000.
Yep, on the 110,000, right? Because that's all that I've got into it. And then you also have the tax benefits that it unlocks, because now we can write off mortgage interest, property taxes. We can depreciate the property, repairs and maintenance, property management, advertising, utilities. It unlocks so many deductions that we can take. And it's not uncommon in a property like this to find $50,000 in write-offs every single year, just between some of those things that I listed off. And let's say you're in a 22% federal bracket and 5% state. Something that's awesome about real estate as well as it's now passive income. It's not subject to self-employment tax, which is another 15.3%. So I didn't even add this into it as well. So it'd even be even higher. But with that federal rate, let's say 22 and then state at 5%. So my effective rate would be 27%. 27% of 50,000 is 13,500. So I get another 12% return on my investment. So my average return on this property is about 34.5% every single year, which if you look at the S&P 500 or other investments, I mean, it doesn't touch it. You know what I mean? It's just it's so powerful on what it can do.
Well, and I've been a huge fan in real estate since day one, for this reason alone. It's just, and I was mostly looking at it like just from a cash flow standpoint. Like if I can get it to cash flow, nowadays it's way harder to find a property that cash flows. But even if you found a property that broke even, these other appreciation, mortgage pay down, tax benefits, like sometimes that makes enough sense for business owners and individuals to just get into it for that reason alone right now, which is crazy. should we talk about if you didn't have a mortgage and you just paid cash for that property?
Yeah, let's look at that. But even before that, even I want to hit on a point, like even if it doesn't cash flow, if you're breaking even, take out my cash flow on that property, we're still getting 30% return on our investment. Okay, it's something, real estate's a long-term play. Now, if you're looking at getting into fix and flipping and things like that, that's going to be a whole other realm. And obviously, there's going to be other things that you have to make sure that you're hitting. But on this property, if we took the mortgage out, our total annual ROI is only going to be 14%. So it drops by 20% just by taking out the mortgage, because now instead of 110,000 I have invested, now I have $450,000 invested. Okay, so hopefully there's not any Ramseyites out there. I don't want I'm not here to pick any fights, but this is just my opinion. So our appreciation's down to 3% instead of 12%. Tax benefits are now 3% instead of 12%, because now this 13,500 is off of that 450 instead of my 110. But our cash flow has doubled, right? Because now we're taking that rent, and instead of getting 350 per month, we're getting $36,000 over the course of the year. So that goes up significantly. But if you look at it, I guess from a mile high view, now you're only getting 14%, so it's not as good.
Only.
So, yeah, which is still better than, the S&P 500. So, you're still beating that flat 10%. So you're still, if security is important to you, then obviously this is an option. But if you're into building a lot of wealth, I think a mortgage and mortgaging the property and making sure it's in a good area, going to appreciate well, I think it's a great option.
One thing you don't have in here either is the rental appreciation, like the rents that go up over time, because that changes. But one thing I think we should note here is this is a property you bought how many years ago?
About 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
So this looks pretty good right now, right? Because like your debt was cheaper. Like now if you run this scenario, it looks a lot more grim with like a 7.5% interest rate, right? But it's still doable. It's the deals can still be out there. Like I bought 3 or 4 properties last year, and like I just had to get creative on how to structure them. I'm still a huge fan of real estate, even in this like inflated high interest market.
Yeah, and maybe you can talk to the point. Utah's not slowing down. The housing market probably isn't going to lower at all. It's just going to keep getting better, because the demand here, I think let's see. I do have a list of the top 10 growing states. Idaho's number 1, and I think Utah's number 8.
Yeah.
And so the value is just going to keep going higher and higher, and a lot of people are projecting that real estate's supposed to have another double in the next 4 years or something like that. I'm not sure if that's something
Well, it depends on what graph you're looking at, but Utah's definitely up in the top 10. And it's not just like our natural reproduction rate. What's that? What do you call that rate? It's not that.
How many more homes are coming back onto the market?
No, how many people are having kids?
Oh, okay.
Anyways, it's not our like, what is that?
Yeah, reproduction.
Is it?
That's a word for it. He's got to look it up though. Fertility.
There we go. Our TFR rate, our total fertility rate. So, like Utah, I think we do have a higher fertility rate because more people in Utah have more kids than other states. But we have so many people that are just migrating to Utah that want to be here from other states, from other countries that are like, hey, Utah's a pretty cool place. You got all 4 seasons. There's a lot to do. We really have from Zions to Moab to the Uinta mountain ranges. Like there's just a ton of the ski resorts. There's so much to do here in Utah that ranges so differently that I think makes it a very popular state for people to come. Cause like within, 5 hours, you can be in a totally different climate.
Red Rock.
Yeah. It just feels different. You can be in the mountains with snow down to like Red Rock and warmer weather. So it's just within a drive, which is crazy. And I think that's what people love about being here in Utah. So let's, I want you to cover, because real estate gets even sweeter if you're a real estate professional. And like, let's dive into what that means, how you qualify,
Yeah.
and then how that helps people.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically there's three types of people who buy real estate. You have a real estate professional, you have active investors, and passive investors. Now all my clients, typically you can be over on the active investor side instead of passive. And basically all you have to do to be an active investor is saying you're the decision maker. Okay, it's very easy to hit. Now real estate professional, this one is a little bit more difficult to hit, and it comes with significant higher benefits when it comes to real estate. So to be a real estate professional, you have to have 750 hours in the game of real estate, and also be operating in one of the 11 qualified trade or businesses, which is development, redevelopment, construction, reconstruction, acquisition, conversion, rental, operations, management, leasing, and brokerage. So if you operate inside of any of those real property trade or businesses and you spend 750 hours in that business per year, you qualify as a real estate professional. And what they can do, which is super powerful with this, it's called rep status, real estate professional status, is they can use losses from their rental properties to offset their active income. Okay. And if you want to supercharge that strategy, they can do a cost segregation study, which basically goes through, it's a 30 to 40 page engineered report where they break down the property into individual components. And usually on a $400,000 house, they can usually find $80,000 to $100,000 to be able to write off in the first year. Okay. So that's like an $80,000 to $100,000 deduction that they can take year one. Okay. So Paden qualifies as a real estate professional, and he is able to do this strategy. So he's probably feeling all high and mighty right now, but there is a loophole that you guys can have access to be able to utilize this strategy if you're not in one of the 11 qualified trader businesses, or you have a W-2 day job or something like that. But it's called the short-term rental loophole. And basically what you do is you buy a rental property, okay? You rent it out on Airbnb or VRBO, and the average guest stay must be 7 days or less, okay? And you need to rent it out for at least 15 days. So some clients of mine, they'll buy a rental property, but they don't want to be Airbnb hosts forever. So they'll buy it at the end of the year, rent it out for 7 days or less, get 3 or 4 stays in there, and then day one of 2026 of this year, they could convert it to a long-term rental. But we can still do a cost segregation study on the rental when it was short-term and be able to take $80,000 to $100,000 out of that property and offset your active income. So that is one strategy that you can use if you're interested in getting a pretty big deduction in real estate if you're not a real estate professional.
The short-term rental loophole. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Super, super powerful.
Did you do that with yours?
So I did not do that with mine because I didn't know it at the time.
But you could have.
But I could have. And that's the thing is if you do the short-term rental loophole, you just have to decide, hey, do I want to keep this for a long time as a short-term rental? Because if you do it at the start of the year, you need to keep a short-term rental that whole year to hit that 7 days or less for the whole entire year. So some people, they do it at the end of the year, so they're not having to do it the whole time. They get the 7 days or less, rent it out for at least 15 days, a couple of stays, and then they can convert it to a long-term rental, but still take that cost seg and take all the depreciation out of the property.
That's interesting.
And offset their income. So that's a strategy that someone can use if they're not a real estate professional. But if you are, you don't have to jump through as many hoops. And like Paden, you just get a cost seg study and be able to take massive depreciation losses and offset their active income.
And I think that's how you mentioned Trump only paid $750 in 2016 and 17 in taxes.
Yep. And
that's how we did it.
Exactly.
Was that way.
Yep. Is by doing that.
And you do have to recapture the depreciation, so you're not writing it off forever, but you can 1031 exchange that into other properties.
Correct. So this is not a strategy to use if you're going to buy the property and think you're going to depreciate it
and then sell it
the next day. This is a more long-term strategy. You want to keep this property for at least 10 to 15 years if you're going to do the cost segregation study. on that property. But ideally, technically, I mean, you don't want to sell it at all, because if you think about it, that you can use that as your retirement. Okay. Because the reality of it, Social Security isn't going to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we need to be thinking and planning for ourselves, because none of us want to work forever. And rentals are a great way to be able to stash up for retirement. So we're not having to work forever, and great investments
Well,
to have.
I think people way underestimate the power of real estate, and they don't realize how for me, it's a long-term play. And I would rather just get properties and I put them in there and I kind of forget about them. Maybe eventually one day I'll sell them, but I won't sell them to cash out. I'll sell them to 1031 into another property, which I have yet to do. But I feel like I might be getting to that point where it's like, okay, I've had this property for 10 years, cost segs ran out. Let's reset this and move it around, right? And reset that schedule again and do another cost seg, but on a more expensive property.
Mm-hmm.
But one strategy that I've tried, like I like bringing up to people, because I think this is very actionable, and it is intense, but it can be done. Somebody could go out and buy a rental property every year for 15 years, put it on a 15-year note. Right now in this market, you'd probably be losing money, but you put it on a 15-year note. After 15 years, that first property is then paid off, and then you can just do a cash out refi. And after 15 years, you could probably have like $200,000 to $300,000 tax free just from cash out refining. And then it's like, off of 15 properties, you got $200,000 to $300,000 a year tax free income that you just have to do a cash out refi for.
Yeah.
And just keep that like recycling.
And just keep recycling.
Yeah.
And your deductions really aren't going to run out, because if you keep 1031ing it and getting it into another property, I mean, mortgage interest is, I mean, just right there, I think the mortgage on this property and interest alone, I think we pay 24 or 2,300 a month in interest, but that's fully deductible. So that's over $23,000 a year, that we can write off. And so it just unlocks so many things that you can do from that perspective. But there's a lot of ways.
So what other ways or strategies do you cover if somebody wanted to come talk to you about reducing their tax liability?
So, well, first, I mean, we can talk about moving to a different state if that's something that you wanted to do. I mean, that's one of the easiest things that you can do to reduce your tax bill. Is there's 5 or 10, I think at least 10 states that are tax free. You got Wyoming, Nevada, Oregon. So there's a couple states that are completely tax free. You move there, that just eliminated 5% off your bottom line. Now, a lot of people, that's not reasonable. A lot of people want to be here with their families, where they grew up. But I mean, there's things like taking home office, if you're a business owner, paying your kids, strategies on paying your kids, and income shifting. We can set up HSAs, a health savings account, and show you how to write off chiropractic visits or your dental office, or other things like that, any medical expenses that you have with a high deductible health plan. Investing in real estate, obviously a huge, massive one. Oil and gas, if you want to get really creative in soil and solar. There's also opportunity zones, which are super powerful as well, that you can do. And Paden is able to show you guys if you're interested in investing. But there's areas in Ogden and all over the states. Back in 2017, when Trump did his Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the states all got to pick areas for redevelopment for investors to go in and invest in. And if you invest in a property that's in one of these opportunity zones, if you hold it for 10 years, you can depreciate the property to absolutely zero. And you can sell anytime after 10 years completely tax-free.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Which is absolutely crazy. And you can hold it until 2047. So when you're seeing these apartment complexes going up in some interesting areas, that's exactly what they're doing. Is they're looking for the tax benefits of investing in real estate and completely tax-free.
That was the purpose of them wanting to do that, is to build up those areas too. So it was pretty smart. They're like, hey, we want these areas to be kind of revitalized and built up, and that's how they did it.
Yeah.
It was smart. Genius.
Exactly.
Well, no, this has been super helpful. Where can people find out more about you?
So basically right now I'm just going around and I've been doing presentations for various investor groups and brokerages, but my phone number is 801-644-1822.
And
if you want to give me a call or shoot me a message, and I do a free 30-minute consultation to see if something like this would even make sense for you guys, and go over basically what you have going on in your businesses, or maybe some things that you're looking at, or questions that you have. Um, and frankly, why I do that is because accountants are kind of hard to get a hold of these days. They're hard to kind of rope down and get questions answered. So that's what I'm here to do. And yeah, so
I love
just
it.
shoot me a text.
And you just got an Instagram page too, I believe.
I do, but hardly any followers. and I need to get better at the content.
You're
setting,
gonna,
but,
yeah. They'll hop on there now and they'll be like, "Holy crap! There's a lot of content on there now."
Yeah,
He's exploded. You'll be
Yeah.
the next Liver King.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what we can do.
I feel like I need to say that you should consult with your tax professional as well.
Which is me.
Yeah. Anyways, no, give Stetson a call. He can help you drastically save on your taxes, make more money, and keep more in your pocket. So he is the modern day Robin Hood.
There you go. Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.